Autism is a lifelong developmental disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skills. It is defined as a spectrum disorder that affects people differently. It also impacts the individual throughout its lifespan. As there is no known cause of autism, early diagnosis can help the person to live a quality life. On this World Autism Day, we at Medicircle are conducting Autism Awareness Series to impart knowledge and awareness amongst the general public about the therapies and treatments available to improve the quality of individuals and their acceptance in the society by interviewing eminent pediatric neurologists, speech therapists, autism consultants, and clinical psychologists. Hi, this is Sana Khan, and today in this initiative, we're going to speak to Gopika Kapoor. Gopika is a writer and autism consultant. She is the author of best-selling books Spiritual Parenting, Spiritual Pregnancy, Spiritual Relationships, and Spiritual Success, published by Hay House India. Gopika has written for a number of leading publications and has been consulted on various communications initiatives with national and international NGOs. She has been awarded the Young FICCI Ladies Organization Women Achievers Award for exemplary writing. In order to spread awareness about autism, Gopika also hosts Beyond the Blue Chats, a weekly conversation on Instagram with people connected with autism. Hello, Gopika. Welcome to Medicircle. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me, Sana. Really delighted to be here. Thank you.
It is our pleasure, ma'am. Okay, Gopika, what is autism?
Okay. So, autism, put simply, is a neurodevelopmental condition. If we break up this word into two parts, neuro means having to do with the brain, it's the way the brain functions, and developmental means that it impacts the development of an individual.
Okay.
Very, very simply put, if you want to speak about this in layperson's language, there is a difference in the way the brain is wired in an autistic person's brain as opposed to a neurotypical brain.
Mhm.
This impacts the way people on the autism spectrum perceive the world and interact with others. And the areas in which autism has impact is social communication and social interaction,
Okay.
where people have very restricted interests and repetitive behaviors, and the sensory inputs that they perceive could be different from that of neurotypical people. So
Okay.
these are broadly the areas it impacts. Now, how this manifests is that it manifests in the way they behave, in the
Mhm.
way they have social interaction, in the way they communicate, and again, because there are sensory differences in the way they perceive the world, it would be in how they respond to the world outside and to various
Correct.
sensory stimuli.
Correct. Right.
So it's also, as you said, a spectrum. The reason it's called a spectrum is because individuals could fall anywhere on the spectrum, and the characteristics and symptoms could present in varying ways. So there could be somebody who could have only social communication
Right.
challenges. There would be somebody who would have challenges across all areas. So
Okay.
it depends on how it presents itself. But it's basically a spectrum condition. It's a lifelong condition,
Mhm.
which means that it stays throughout life, and there is no known cure for autism. So it is something which can be worked on. It can definitely, people with autism can be taught, but it cannot be fixed as such.
So, Gopika, what causes autism and how can a parent identify this disorder in their child?
Actually, there are no known causes. There is a lot of research which is happening
Mhm.
on autism. Some people say it is genetic, some people
Right.
say it is the environment, some people say it's a
Mhm.
combination of the two. There was a huge out, outcry of about 20 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, where one of the researchers claimed that the MMR vaccine causes autism. That has since then been completely, it's been proved to not be true. The MMR vaccine has been proved to not cause autism. So there is a lot of controversy about what causes autism. What we do know is that currently the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta estimates that 1 in 54 or 56, I think, 1 in 54 kids is diagnosed with autism in the US. When it comes to India, we have varied figures. I think the approximate number based on a study that was carried out in 2019 on the prevalence of autism in India puts it as more than 3 million people. When they've taken a sample study and they've kind of extrapolated it. But again, these numbers could be grossly underrepresented because we know about the tremendous length and breadth of India. We also know about the lack of awareness amongst people and the lack of education that unfortunately exists in our country. And so, given that, the numbers could be much, much higher, even twice or thrice that figure. Again, we don't know the cause at all. What we do know is that when children in their childhood, they have certain differences from their peers. Whether it is not making eye contact, whether it's not being able to form words and speaking as at the same time as their peers, preferring to be aloof, having different kind of sensory responses, not being able to respond. Little babies, when they don't respond with a social smile, like they do at typically the age of 4 to 6 months, they start responding with a social smile. That is when parents need to take their children to a developmental pediatrician. Many parents have gone to regular pediatricians, and these pediatricians, by their own admission, do not know enough about autism. So a developmental pediatrician is somebody who has studied pediatrics but has also studied developmental disabilities along with that, and they would be able to diagnose the condition effectively. There are some tests, but those are administered once the child is a little older. But even an early diagnosis can be done by a developmental pediatrician. There is a lot of controversy about how soon and how early a child can be diagnosed. What a lot of developmental pediatricians do is that they say they label the child at risk for. So they'll say the child is at risk for autism, which means that we need to see how things progress, we need to see how things develop, but this child definitely has characteristics of this condition, and the work can start accordingly.
Gopika, do you think
working on this child.
Do you think there is a particular age when the child shows these symptoms? When they are they do not respond or anything like that? There's no particular age, right?
No, it depends on the child. It completely depends on the child. I have worked with children as young as 18 months. And what we do know is that early intervention works. So the earlier it is caught, the faster the chances of progress, because as you also must be knowing that the brain grows its maximum in 3 to 5 years. Its ability to absorb is a lot. And so there's a higher chance of a lot of progress being made in the early years.
So Gopika, what is the best treatment for a child with autism?
I think the best therapy, there are a lot of therapies. There's applied behavior analysis. There is an approach called TEACH. There's an approach called pivotal response training. There are various approaches. I think the best therapy is one which suits the child and the family circumstances. So, for example, when my son was diagnosed 13 years ago, the prevalent therapy at that time was ABA. At that time, the standard kind of format given to all parents was that you need to do 40 hours of therapy a week. That means it's literally like doing a 5-day job, working 9 to 5. So it's 8 hours a day, 9 to 5 for every week, which was extremely taxing on parents because it meant drop everything and do therapy with this child. Now that again for so many families doesn't work, because you have parents who work, you have different, maybe their financial difficulties, whatever it is. I think the best kind of therapy is that which can be combined with the natural environment and the natural routine of the child. So, for example, when I worked at Umid Child Development Center, where I worked as a therapist for 10 years, we used to teach an approach which was called a developmental approach, which was naturalistic and child-led, which meant that naturalistic meant that it could be incorporated in the day-to-day life of the family. So while the mother was, giving the child a bath, or while the father was feeding the child, they could use that time to teach the child and to work with the child. So it became work, but at the same time, it was within a natural setting. And that made it so much easier for the parents, because it's not that they had to carve out special time. The child could also be sitting with either of the parents in the kitchen, and they could be taught then, or could be in the park, and they could be taught then. They could be taught when they take them out for errands.
So it would be rather more like a daily routine along with the therapy.
Yes.
Right? Exactly. Living your daily
so
routine.
Incorporating therapy
Correct.
within the daily routine. Yes.
Right. So now, Gopika, we would like to know more about your book, that is Beyond the Blue, and the chat that you've started with the name Beyond the Blue Chats on Instagram. Please detail us about it.
Sure. So this is the book. This is the cover of the book. It's called Beyond the Blue: Love, Life, and Autism. So when my son was diagnosed, I didn't find anything by an Indian writer, and I would read a lot of material, look for lots of books, order lots of books, and read them, and everything was from a Western perspective. And I'm a writer. I have a master's in journalism. And so at the back of my mind was this thing that one day I will write a book on autism. At that time, I did not have I was not empowered enough. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the maturity to be able to talk about my own journey at that time. And so what happened is I started working at Umid when my son was about 5 years old. I worked there for 10 years, worked with so many children, learned so much. And then I realized that I was in a very unique position, because I have lived with the condition for now 16 years, because my son is 16 years old. And I have also worked with numerous families. I must have worked with 400 to 500 families during my 10 years at Umid.
Wow.
Each one of them taught me so much. And so just the fact that I had got all this professional knowledge and experience, and at the same time, I had personal knowledge and experience that I could combine to really share, what put me in a very unique position. Plus, there was no Indian parent who had openly talked about autism. No one had really spoken about it or talked about it as such. And so, being a writer, writing is my first love. That is the way I chose to kind of manifest it and to express my journey. And that is how Beyond the Blue was born. And it's available all across India on Amazon and Flipkart. And the e-version is also available, and it's also available in the US and the UK on Amazon as well. So Beyond the Blue came about. It was released in November last year. And I am currently finishing the Hindi translation is in progress. It's happening. Because I really don't want it to reach only an English speaking, reading audience. It has to go beyond.
Right.
It has to go to everybody. So what if you can't read English? That doesn't mean that you don't have access.
Very true.
So I've Hindi translation is almost it's a work in progress, and I'm hoping to be able to translate it into other languages as well, and really spread the word. So So after the book came out, there was an initial publicity around it and things like that. And then I thought, okay, now I don't want this to just die and for people to just not know about autism, because my primary focus was not so much for me to get the recognition, but for autism to get out there. It was for people to become aware that there is a condition called autism, and more so that people with autism have potential, that they have the potential to be active, contributing members of society who deserve to completely be integrated and included and to participate in society and wherever they may live. And so I started Beyond the Blue Chats on Instagram. It has now moved across platforms. It's on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. So this is a chat which I do every week, and I get in somebody or the other who's connected to autism. So I've had some amazing guests. I started with Rishabh
Gopika, is
Birla,
this on any particular day that you have this chat?
Yes, I do. I used to host it as an Insta live session on Wednesdays, but then because of a lot of connectivity, there was a problem, and so I just upload the chat on every Wednesday.
Okay.
But it's there. It's available for people to see at any time because it's part of on Instagram. It's on IGTV. On Facebook, it's part of Facebook. So it's on my feed on Facebook as well as on Instagram, and I can share the links with you later, so you can just use those. So it's different people. So I started out with Rishabh Birla, who's a young man on the spectrum. I've spoken to an occupational therapist, Chola Badiani, on OT. I've spoken to Marzia Maskati, who is a counselor for neurodiverse couples, and we had a superb chat on that. I spoke with Leela Raj, who is works in adult services. So I've had various people who I've spoken with, and the chats have been really very informative and really quite fantastic. And there are more and more chats, and they're from people who are connected with autism in any way. Akshay Shetty, who came on, was talking about art and how she created an autism-specific curriculum in Bangalore. And there are people who are doing such amazing work and are so connected to this space that my hope is really to build a community and to also serve as a sort of resource center for people for parents who are looking for information, for young people on the spectrum to kind of express themselves, and just for it to be a very safe, inclusive, non-judgmental space for people to tell their stories.
This feels so good to know that being a mother and being a consultant, you're spreading your words. So it feels so good, so amazing that you're spreading the word so diligently that you want people to know, to be aware of it. You're trying everywhere, and we hope this really gives good success, especially in spreading the word.
Sana, I just want to add one thing. I just wanted to add that I also have started working with corporates to work on hiring people on the autism spectrum. So I've started taking baby steps still, but working with corporates on how they can make hiring possible for people with autism. Because what happens is they're children, young adults, they get their therapy, they may get their education, and now what? Now they're stuck. So in terms, and they have amazing skills, they're loyal, they're honest, they're diligent, they're focused, and they make great workers. So why are people not hiring more people?
Very true.
So that is something
I think, Gopika, this just needs a bit of awareness to the people. There's a lot of lack of knowledge. There's just a lack of knowledge. Otherwise, there's great hope.
Absolutely, there is. I really do think that there is. And I'm hoping that I can make a small contribution to this.
Definitely. Okay, thank you so much, Gopika, for coming to our show and sharing your valuable time and your experience with us. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.